we're in the car today and I'm going to be doing a video on how to get into your dream uni, your dream college. I've been meaning to make this video for a long time. I've been kind of gathering what I want to say for it. Finally, it's here. I transferred literally a year ago. Acceptance letters literally came out last April, so I don't even know. This is like super late, but hopefully I can still help you guys if you guys are planning to transfer to your dream university. I'm going to be mainly talking about the schools that I applied to, and those are 4 UCs, 1 private, which is USC, and 1 state school, but the majority of this video is going to be on the UCs. For a little talk today, I decided to get matcha. This is the matcha strawberry cream or something. It's so good. It's so good. We have it for our talk today. You guys know I love a good matcha. It's so light. I love it. This video is basically how to get into your dream uni, all the best tips that I can give you guys, everything that I learned through the whole application process. And this is specifically for transfer because I transferred to UCLA. Hopefully this helps you guys if you're transferring too. You probably watched my college decisions reaction that I posted a little more than a year ago. I think it was during last summer. So here's everything from my college application process as a transfer, from my experience and all the tips that I can give. And I also want to emphasize the things that I learned throughout the whole process, so hopefully this helps you guys. Okay, so I applied to 6 campuses as a transfer. I'm gonna be getting into like what it was kind of like before I transferred. When I was applying in the fall of 2022, I basically applied to 4 UCs: UCLA, UC Berkeley, UCSD, and UCSB, and I did tag to UCSB. I'll get into that more later if you guys are kind of confused about what tag is, or if you've heard of it and you don't really know what it is. USC and SDSU. I'll make sure to like put the video in section so that you guys could go to that specific section if it applies to you. For all the schools, I applied as a comm major at Berkeley. It's known as Media Studies, and I got into comm for all of the schools except UCLA, which I go to now. And for UCLA, I actually got accepted as my second choice major. I'm actually really thankful for, because in the major I am right now, which is linguistics, it's pretty interesting. It's more niche than comm. I learned a lot about it through my first year. If I remember, the applications usually come out August and the decisions usually come out in like the spring. I remember, I think I did all my decisions. It was all in the month of April. I'm basically gonna be sharing with you guys my whole transfer process because I know it can be super confusing, and I want to be there to help people who are probably confused by the process too. I know I was so confused during that time, like genuinely. My overall path after high school, I ended up attending SDSU. I was there for a total of 1 semester in a pre-nursing major. So I decided it wasn't the path that I wanted to take, so I decided to go to community college instead. I transferred to community college after 1 semester, and so I was at my community college for a total of 3 semesters, which is 1 semester less than like the normal student who would go from the CC to a university path. I was definitely a little more busier because I was behind a semester. I didn't know what major I wanted to do at that time. I was looking into film, but I ended up choosing communications. It went by so fast, and I don't know if it's because I was so busy with all the work that I was doing. Honestly, we take time for granted. Like, CC was a pretty good experience for me, just it went by so fast. Because I knew that UCLA was my dream school by the time I was like applying, I knew that the communication major was pretty competitive there. I wanted to take as many relevant classes as possible, so I ended up taking classes at 3 other community colleges my last semester in CC. It definitely depends on your major and your school, so if you're aiming for a specific major in a specific school, you should look at the requirements for that because it's going to be different for each one. You need to make sure that you get the requirements, and then it doesn't hurt to go farther than the requirements and take more that are relevant to the major. Okay, I literally have all my notes on my phone right now, so I'm kind of like looking down at it. A girl can't remember all of this in her brain, but I have it all written down on my phone. I ended up doing the TAP program for UCLA. This is different from the TAG program, which I'm going to be talking about later. The TAP stands for Transfer Alliance Program. I think they only do it for UCLA. It helps with your acceptance from CC to UCLA. I don't know if it's only specific CCs that do this, but basically you have a higher chance of being admitted into your major that you're tapping for. And then you're eligible to be considered for your alternate major only if you're not accepted for your first choice major. I'm pretty sure TAP only works for specific majors too, so like majors like nursing at UCLA, they don't do it, but like for comm they did do it. What you basically have to do, and what I did, is you complete the honors program at your CC. You get TAP certified. It was a pretty simple process for that. That's how it worked for me. I don't know if it's more complicated at other CCs. Now it's time for my stats. This is so weird. I've never shared anything like this, but at my CC, my first semester, spring of 2022, I got A's in all of these 5 classes, in my communications class, my English class, my sociology class, stats, and my research class. I took 2 classes in the summer because I needed to get a few more classes in. I took this dance class and another English class, and I got A's for those 2 classes. In the fall of 2022, I took 6 classes, a communications class, dance class, digital media, history, there's a music class, and then political science, and I got A's in all those classes. For spring, which was my last semester at CC, I took 4 classes, communications class, econ, my research class, and then dance. And then I got A's in the first 3 and then B's in the last one, which is dance. As I mentioned, I actually took classes at 3 other CCs in my last semester. Girl was getting busy. Like, girl was putting herself on a schedule with all of these classes, but I'm thankful. I really feel that all my hard work paid off, and I'm so thankful seeing that the goals that I have were accomplished because I did these stuff. One of my classes, which I took, was business. I got a B for that. I took a linguistics class. This was actually my first ever linguistics class. I got an A for that class. And then the last one, I actually took this one at SMC, argumentation, and it was basically a communications class, but I got an A for that one. Also, I had to put my grades down for when I was at SDSU. Even though it was 1 semester, I still had classes that count as credits. So I took 5 classes: Chinese, public speaking, marching band, and philosophy. For those, I got all A's. For the last class that I took, which was anatomy, I got a B. I still put down the AP scores that I got. I put down 3 test scores. For psych, I got a 4, and then for APES, I got a 4, and then bio, I got a 3. I recommend trying to keep your GPA up there. I know, like, GPA doesn't really matter. Honestly, I always say that. Like, it genuinely doesn't matter. It doesn't say anything about you as a person. I don't believe that GPA, like, is a good way of telling how smart you are. Like, honestly, like, it really isn't. But I would say that it's best to keep it up because you should try and researching, like, the average GPA of the specific major and the specific school you want to, because they do look at that. I just recommend being, like, the best student that you can be, and that's what helped me. I romanticized school because, like, doing that helped me stay on top of my work to reach my goals. I think my GPA was around a 3.91. If you feel that your GPA is not as strong in your specific major and school that you're applying to, I still recommend showing your strengths in other parts of the application. We're now on to extracurriculars. In my college decisions reactions, some of you guys were asking my stats and my extracurriculars. When I was doing the extracurricular section, I just felt like I was comparing myself to so many other people who were so heavy on the extracurriculars. It made me feel like I wasn't doing enough, but instead of thinking in this way for so long, I decided to shift my mindset. So even though extracurriculars wasn't my strongest aspect in my application, I decided not to let this tear me down. I found other areas that I could stand out. That was definitely the essays for me. I'm going to be, like, kind of going over my essays later in this video. Getting into the extracurriculars that I listed down. So the first one, which was probably my biggest one, is cheer and dance. I did cheer in high school, so going into SJ, I was on the dance team. When I transferred to CC, I went back to cheer. When I, like, mentioned my extracurriculars, I also used it as a way to show my character. In things like dance and cheer, I learned how to be coordinated, I learned how to work out disagreements, and I basically showed the lessons that I learned from doing those things. I want to emphasize how, like, cheer and dance curates my character and curates my passion. There's a lot of matcha breaks in this. For the TAP program, it was advised that we put it in that section. I put down in the extracurricular section the TAP program that I did. I also showed that through this. We did a lot of research. I showed them what I learned from that. I talked about how research influenced me positively. Okay, then also you want to think about your hobbies. I always thought that extracurriculars, it's like everything I do in school, like, I'm not doing enough, but we have so many interests. I literally have so many interests, but I constantly stick to the same ones, and one of those is making videos online. I didn't think that I could put that down as an extracurricular, but I was like, why not? It's a big part of what I like doing. I'm passionate about it, and I'm gonna put it as an extracurricular. So basically, I even wrote about my presence on social media because I'm just so passionate about it, and I want to show that in my application. I was also a board member for a short period of time on a student event board at my CC. I wrote about this, and I emphasized the way being in it helped me learn new skills and build my character. I also mentioned things that I thought was relevant to show my character. And I know I keep saying that, like, show your character, but I can't emphasize it enough. I feel like this is the main thing. You need to show who you are as an individual. You can't be another person. You have to be yourself. So the best way to do this is to know yourself. So find one thing. If I were to ask, how would you describe yourself in one word? What is that one word? Show that person through your application. Throughout this whole application process, I was thinking I'm a creative person because I love being creative. It definitely describes me. I was thinking creative this whole time. So I just thought of ways, how am I gonna show that through my application? And then after that, I thought about my passions and things that I'm truly interested in. This is important because it's bringing me into my next point. When I was putting in extracurriculars, I wasn't sure if I should put down my high school extracurriculars. As a transfer, I was like, do I need to put these down? Like, are they even relevant to my application? Because I should be showing my extracurriculars from CC, not high school. I was going through and searching on Google. Most people were saying that you shouldn't put your high school extracurriculars because you're transferring, so it's like irrelevant. However, I actually decided that maybe I will put a few of my high school extracurriculars because they are relevant to how I see myself in that present day. So when I was applying, how I saw myself, I knew that some of those extracurriculars from high school really showed that and really aligned with that. So I felt that it was necessary to include those. You have to make it sound relevant. So you have to show and describe how those things still relate to you in the present day. Those things that I mentioned are stuff that I still stick with and show my personality and character. Let's talk a little bit about the stuff I listed from high school. Tea Club was actually one of the clubs I was in. I remember that's where I learned about what a London fog was. That actually relates to me today because I love the creativity of making drinks. I love tea. I love boba. Genuinely, my dream is to own a boba shop, and that's like one of my passions. That's still relevant to me, and I just talked about how it's relevant to me today. I was also a mentor for incoming freshmen. I basically led a group of freshmen in high school, kind of mentored them throughout the year, and that brings me to my discussion about leadership. I genuinely never thought of myself as a leader. I never saw myself as one. As a shy introvert, it never fit into my personality, and I was always scared to be the leader. I always wanted to be the one that was being led by someone else. So weird to think about that I did that. I think I would still do it to this day though because of an underlying reason. Even though many things such as the application emphasizes leadership, it doesn't mean you need to have these extravagant leadership skills. I knew that's what a lot of schools probably wanted. They want leadership. And as someone who doesn't have that natural leadership vibe, it was hard not to compare myself to those who were doing a lot of leadership roles and had a lot of leadership experience. Being a straight up leader in every situation, it's not who I am. You should be using the app to emphasize your unique strengths. Everyone has their own unique strengths, and I chose stuff outside of leadership to emphasize. So as I said, I did this thing in high school for an underlying reason. Even though I don't see myself as a leader, but hopefully one day I can feel less shy in certain circumstances. I was doing this leading thing in high school for a certain underlying reason. I wanted to make that reason clear on my app. I wanted to be a mentor for the freshmen in high school because when I was a freshman, I was scared. I was so scared to talk to people, so scared to enter high school because it's this next big thing after middle school. Because I knew that I had that fear in freshman year, I wanted to help out freshmen that might be experiencing the same thing that I went through. So again, show your characters, your values, your passions throughout your whole app, and it will really show who you are as a person. I sort of use it as a way to tell a story about myself, but then I also made sure to relate that story to my major and my school. Now for what I believe is the most important part about your application. It was the most important part for me and the most exciting part for me. I'm not going to be reading them, maybe one day, but this video was so long. I'm going to be kind of going an overview and tips for you guys and your essay writing. Still sipping on this. For the UC transfer app specifically, you answer 4 essay questions. One of them is about your intended major. For the other 3, I did the every person has a creative side and it can be expressed in many ways. Describe how you express your creative side. Describe the most significant challenge you have faced and steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? 4th one I did, genuinely I never thought I would pick this one. Beyond what has been already shared, what do you believe makes you the strong candidate for admission to the University of California? I talked about communications. If you guys don't know how the UC app works, you basically do one application for all the UCs. I needed to make sure I wasn't being so specific towards one school, but still being pretty broad and just talking about the major alone. I just talked about how I have a weak spot in communication, which is group communication. I showed what I learned from working in groups in cheer and dance. I talked about how I learned how to take control of the narrative and become stronger in group communication. And then I talked about a recent experience during that time, which was kind of like a realization moment for me. You know how we always talk about the like aha moment? I mentioned a quote that I saw on a cafe window when I was with my sister that made me realize something about my relationship with communication. This might sound confusing, but I basically use this to make a metaphor between that quote that I saw and my communication abilities. I use this essay to show my dedication towards the major and my willingness to learn new things in the major. Also, my willingness to learn from my experiences. I wanted to illustrate my strengths and my unique ability while also answering the prompt. For the second one, the creativity one, the topic that I chose was creating YouTube videos. I started with the hook using imagery. Growing up, I like to write stories, like fictional stories a lot. I connected the idea of writing stories and I connected it to being the main character that drives a story. I connected that to being able to create stories digitally on YouTube. I feel like the way I'm describing this sounds kind of confusing, but hopefully it makes sense and you guys are kind of getting a gist of like what I wrote about. I used that and then I also connected that to making being the main character a reality. I talked about how my favorite video on my YouTube channel is things to do alone in the summer. That was one of my favorite videos that I've ever made. I talked about how this video genuinely filled me with joy and showed me why I'm so passionate about making videos, because I want to influence people in a positive way and help them become the main character of their fantasy. Basically, just help people visualize the positive. If you were to ask me to choose which essay I like the most that I wrote, I don't even know what I would say. The third one was on the significant challenge. This one's pretty personal to me, but I basically talked about my mentally challenging experience of transferring from uni after one semester to CC. The majority of it, I made sure to include important lessons I learned from that experience. I told a story that ultimately showed how I define real achievement. Lastly, for the strong candidate one, never in my life did I think I would choose this prompt, but I did, and here's what I did for that one. I already knew I want to do a really creative essay. I think all of mine were pretty creative, but this one was probably the more creative one. I want to write something to show my true personality, so this was the best prompt for that. If you guys didn't know, hot pot is honestly one of my favorite dishes of all time.
It's so good.
I still love it to this day. Like, it's been 2 years. I still have a hot pot addiction. Like, hot pot is just that food. Hot pot is basically what I talked about in this essay. I compared hot pot and its ingredients to me and my personality. I used a metaphor and I mentioned like the broth, the tofu, and I mentioned my introverted personality, but I also mentioned my talkative side.
Jessica, how are you gonna compare yourself to hot pot? How are you hot pot?
No, I am the tofu. I genuinely, in this essay, I said I was a tofu. I spoke about my strengths and values that ultimately led to me talking about a certain trait of mine that makes me a strong candidate. Being able to use hot pot as a metaphor is what made my essay so creative, and it genuinely just wrapped my personality into one, which is why I love this one so much. Thinking about these essays, it's really bringing me back right now. Hopefully it kind of gives you guys an idea about how I wrote my essays. Here are my tips for essay writing. Writing can genuinely be so hard. It's definitely a hard thing for me, but I think when I get the creativity out, it's just so fun to just write. So remember when I talked about how you should choose something that shows your personality? So I thought about this even before starting my app. I knew that I wanted to show my creativity through my application. I made my essays very creative and engaging rather than just talking about how I'm creative in the essays itself. I wrote to be creative. It wasn't only my content that showed my personality, it was my writing style. So another thing is choose prompts that are relevant to you and that you can write about and mention your passions. The point of the essay and the app is to show who you are, and I think that's what really helped me with the process. Although I might be lacking in some areas, I'm flourishing in other areas. For my third tip, stick to a certain writing style. If you're like doing different writing styles in each one, you're not really portraying yourself. I feel like it can get a bit confusing if you have a very different vibe in each essay. So find a writing style that fits you best and stick to that. The next one is have others proofread. I'm emphasizing this one a lot. It can be really scary to have other people read your essays, and I can 100% agree with that fact. Me, myself, I was so scared to share my essays when I wrote them. You might be scared of people judging your writing, but having people read over your essays can be really helpful because they can catch mistakes that you might not be seeing. And then they can also tell you that certain parts might not make sense from their point of view. Things might make sense when you write it because it's from your point of view, but if you ask someone to read it and they feel like it doesn't make sense, then you might want to rethink overthink that part. You basically have to put your ego aside, allow for constructive criticism. You have to allow people to help you, because how else will you learn? The whole writing process is something you can learn from, and having people look over it, you'll literally lose nothing from it, and it will only help you. In the end, you're honestly the person that can choose whether or not you want to take the feedback or not use it. You have the power to use that feedback. If you feel that the feedback doesn't fit into the narrative that you're trying to portray, then you don't have to take it. But I highly recommend that you're open to constructive criticism during the process. Don't procrastinate. Genuinely, don't procrastinate. That's the worst situation which you can procrastinate in. I might be a huge procrastinator, but I'm always learning to get better. Procrastination is the biggest downfall. Procrastination hurts outcomes. So plan out when you're going to be doing these essays and give yourself a lot of time to proofread. The last thing you want is to be stressing about writing something super fast. I know when I'm writing and I'm in a time crunch, that is the most stressful situation ever. Just save yourself that stress and don't procrastinate on these. You need to put a lot of thought into the writing, and the effort will show when you do that. For my next tip is to not be repetitive and get straight to the point. When you start writing, you'll probably be over the word limit. That's honestly what happens to me, because I write and then I keep writing and then I'm too repetitive and then there's just too many words. So I have to end up reading it over and then cutting things down that might have seemed I kind of already said before. A lot of the words are probably just repetition. So that's why you need to leave a lot of time to proofread, because things like this can happen. This type of thing is not just to write and then be done. It's write, then fix, delete, add. There's just so much to the process, so don't underestimate the effort that it takes in writing. Things might go wrong in the process. Things are not always just gonna be a straight line. It's gonna go. My last tip for you guys is to get straight to the point. This kind of goes into the not being repetitive thing, but also we get a limited amount of words on the essay. So try to get your point across as best as possible and be as captivating as you can. I've been talking about the UCs and I feel like I've been emphasizing that a lot. I'm going to be going into the other schools that I applied to. For SDSU, there was no essays. You just put in your stats and your extracurriculars. I had to do that before the due date. For USC, you have to do that through Common App, and that was my first time actually using Common App. I made a Common App account and then I had to do the application on there. There were 2 essays for this, I remember. They were both about transferring and academic interests related to USC. So again, I remember to focus on that one thing for me, which was creativity. For my app, I wanted to emphasize my dedication and my creativity through my writing and my essays. And I also just wanted to let them understand my personality and my uniqueness. To help with this, just again, think about what you want to focus on and what your value is. If it's something that you're truly interested in, it's not going to be hard to talk about. It's going to be very easy to talk about, and if you're interested in that thing, then it's going to be very authentic. Going back to this, I forgot that USC did this. They had fun prompts. Examples of these prompts were like, describe yourself in 3 words. I said tall, approachable, and considerate. I didn't say creative because I feel like through my essays, I already showed my creativity. I put favorite snack, blueberry muffins, especially the Costco ones. Those are chef's kiss. For the best movie, I said Milan. This has always been a hard question for me. Nowadays, I would probably say Milan or Lemonade Mouth. At the time, it was Milan because I grew up watching that movie. There's an ultimate lesson that shows my values of embracing values and identity. There's a reason why I chose that to be my favorite movie. It's the ultimate movie. The lesson in that movie really speaks to me. What's your life theme song? I put a Twice song. I put Icon by Twice. You guys know me and Twice. When I saw this question, I didn't even think twice about putting Twice down. And it was honestly between Icon and Queen of Hearts because both the lyrics in those songs really speak to me. They're just genuinely so meaningful. Both kind of give me like girl boss vibes and girl boss energy that I really like to encapsulate. I am that energy. I decided to put Icon by Twice because I want to make sure that I showed my confidence. If you could teach a class on any topic, then what would it be? I wrote how to step out of your comfort zone as an introvert. One of my biggest passions is helping people struggling with things that I have and do struggle with. Putting this down fit me the most. There was like way more I remember, but those are such fun questions that the USC app had. I don't know if every major requires it, but the comm major required 1 letter of rec. This one was honestly hard. And you're probably thinking like, why is that even hard? That's probably like the easiest part of the app, getting a letter of rec. Honestly, for me, it was one of the hardest parts. Something I find hard is talking to professors, and it's honestly really scary because I don't know what to say sometimes. Maybe you have felt this sort of fear, or maybe you haven't, but the fear is real. If you're like me and you genuinely do not know how to talk to your teacher or your professor and you need a letter of rec, rec, I recommend just starting to ask them just simple questions after class. You have to at least be able to talk to them so that they know who you are. You can even do this through email. That's how I started doing it. Honestly, the majority of the time, the professor wants you to come and ask for help. Thinking of that really helped me. Make sure to do your best in your work because they will see that. At my CC, there's like no TAs, so it's only the professors that actually grade our work. It was really helpful to have my professor know that I was working really hard on my assignments. Like, my effort showed through my work. Give them something amazing that they can talk about in your letter of rec, because it's not just about getting the letter of rec, it's about what they can say in it. Try your best to create a presence for yourself to your professor. If you don't know how to ask them, you can probably just search it up. I think that's what I did. I literally went on Google and I was like, how to ask my professor for a letter of rec. Those can be very helpful. Going back to the UCs, I was going to talk about tag because I did that for UCSB. Tags only apply to certain UCs. It stands for Transfer Admission Guarantee. Basically, you choose the specific campus you want to tag to, but only certain UCs do the tag. I'm pretty sure you can only tag to Davis, Irvine, Merced, Riverside, Santa Barbara, and Santa Cruz. You can only tag to one. For the fall, you basically complete the tag application by it's like the end of September. You have to meet all the tag requirements. You also have to submit the actual UC app. Basically, your admission is guaranteed as long as you fulfill all the requirements for your specific major, for the specific school. Or what I remember I did, it was be a student from a California CC, complete a certain number of semester or quarter UC transferable units. The last one was have over a specific GPA. I don't know if it's different for different majors. I think for mine it was like 3.4, something like that. Honestly, you guys can search this up. I feel like tag is confusing but simple at the same time. It's confusing when you don't really know much about it, but if you do your research and you kind of learn a little more about it, it becomes simple. The transfer process is honestly so confusing. I feel like it's definitely not talked about, specifically the transfer process. Hopefully I can shed some light on the transfer process. Hopefully by sharing my experience, I can help you guys who are planning to transfer. I chose UCLA, which was my dream school. Even though it was the only school I was accepted as my second choice major, I thought long and hard about whether or not I was going to change my whole major just to go to UCLA. In the end, I'm honestly so grateful that I did. I listened to myself and I said yes because honestly, I want to explore linguistics as a major further, and I'm hoping that I can get a minor in digital humanities because I feel like it would be a really great pair. College is definitely a time where you can learn more about yourself. Being at UCLA is definitely helping me explore my interests. I'm super grateful that I chose UCLA and considered my alternate major. Lastly, what did I learn from my transfer and app experience? Kind of the things that I want you guys to take away from this video. First of all, the process is confusing. I felt so much stress just trying to understand the app process alone. So make sure to do your research. Even like watching a video like this could be a research. Research the specific majors, the specific school, what are the specific requirements, because a lot of the times it's the requirements. You end up not having the requirements that you end up needing. Don't be afraid to ask your counselor for help when you really need it. When you have to, you have to. Don't let your anxiety or your nervousness get in the way. I'm seriously speaking from experience. I have had so much anxiety from even walking into the counselor's office, even though it was just a basic counselor meeting, because I'm that scared for some reason. But when I know I need it, I go and take the action and just put myself in what I find uncomfortable situation. Honestly, it ends up helping me in the end. Another thing, don't let imposter syndrome tear you down. If you guys aren't familiar with imposter syndrome, it's basically when you're not confident in your abilities and skills and you're constantly doubting it and yourself. So if you guys watch my college decisions reactions video, you guys know that I never thought I would get into schools like LA, Berkeley, USC. I was like, is this real when I opened up the acceptance letters? But here I am a year later, literally attending my dream school that I manifested, also having known I got into Berkeley and USC. Other schools, I was genuinely like having so much imposter syndrome. I'm not gonna get into any schools. Even though I tagged to UCSB, I was thinking of the worst possible scenario. Looking back, I definitely let it tear me down for a little bit. You shouldn't let imposter syndrome tear you down or hold you back, because here we are now. If you genuinely think that you can't do it, there's no benefit from even thinking that. Just believe it, because you never know. And even if you think something is hard to believe, it doesn't hurt to think positively about the situation. It's also better to think positively about the situation, because then it will positively influence other parts of your life instead of when you think negatively, like other parts of your life are going to be negatively influenced. You don't want to bring yourself down just because of one thing. Be happy and then let it influence other parts of your life. Even if things don't turn out the way you wanted or expected it to, it isn't the end. There's always that little sign that will bring you in the direction that was meant for you. For me, it was not being accepted as my first choice major. I was accepted as my alternate major at my dream school, and it happened for a reason. You need to ignore imposter syndrome. It will only lower your confidence. Your confidence will be brought up once you forget about imposter syndrome and once you remember how dedicated you are to your passion. The best thing that you can do is focus on those skills that you do have. Constantly remind yourself the amazing things that have been brought into your life because of those skills. Remember how those skills have shaped you into who you are in the present day. Remember your strengths and speak highly of yourself so that your confidence is clear. Use the app as a form of expression. I can't stress this enough, but try your best to show your character. Every part of the app is an opportunity for you to show your unique strengths. Put your best effort into the app as you can. Your best effort. So with whatever the outcome is, you want to know that you tried your absolute best. Like, you don't want to go into it thinking that the time you spent on the app was like
2-3 days
and that's what you submitted. You also don't want to go into it submitting something that you feel doesn't illustrate or encapsulate who you are. You want to know that you put so much hard work into it and so much time and effort into it. Make it something that you are so proud of that with whatever outcome or whatever happens, it doesn't matter. You are gonna have so much pride in what you have created. Guys, I want you to take everything that I said in this video, all the little tips, the little things that I learned, everything that I told you guys, and use it to help you in your journey. Hopefully this inspires or helps you guys if you're in this journey too. I was in this a little more than a year ago, almost 2 years ago. For the transfers out there, you guys got this. I believe in you. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys. Melted matcha.